She posted it like a warning and a promise all at once. A grainy Polaroid of her laughing with sunglasses on, captioned in a font that looked like someone's advice to their younger self. Don't let them play you. The comments came quick and sweet. Praying hands, crown emojis, facts, and 3 friends who typed nothing but heartfire. I stared at the sentence until its edges went blurry, as if I could scrub the letters and reveal what she had been hiding beneath them. 3 nights earlier she'd kissed me goodbye at the door and said she'd be late with friends. Her eyes were steady, the kind of steady that had taught me not to worry so much. I watched the hallway light swallow her silhouette and told myself, again, the practiced lies of people who love. That trust is a bridge, not a trap. That late nights are just a cost of living in a city that never sleeps. The first small crack was a tagged photo from a rooftop bar I didn't know she frequented. In it she leaned into a man with a grin I'd seen only once before. At a party where my jokes had failed and his had landed like currency. The intimacy in the shot was casual, as if it belonged to a script I hadn't been given. I told myself it was nothing. Angles lie, filters flatter, and friends make all the same faces when the cameras come out. But the proof kept accumulating in the gutter of our daily life. She began returning calls with that short breath at the end, smiling at texts when I walked into the room, deflecting questions with jokes that used to land but now felt like shields. Curiosity is a quiet animal. It prowls and waits until you let it in. One morning, when she left a steaming mug on the counter and her phone face down on the chair, I crossed the line I'd promised never to cross. The conversation I found with a name I hadn't expected, Daniel, read like a map of someone else's late nights. Messages threaded with inside jokes, midnight plans, and photographs of 2 shadows leaning together on cafe benches. There were things she'd typed that she hadn't typed to me. Missed you this morning and that look you gave me, lethal. There was a message that, in its smallness, took my breath. Don't worry, I'm not his type, he's just fun. Signed with a cartoon heart. When she came home that evening she hummed under her breath and told me about a group that had stayed behind to keep talking. She said a name, Claire, as if that explained everything. I watched the choreography of her hands, the tilt of her head, and the way her smile considered where to land. I wanted to ask. I wanted to lay the phone on the table where we ate and force the truth to speak loud and clumsy like a drunk who can't keep secrets. Instead, I swallowed the thud of betrayal, and let civility do what it always does. Paper over the jagged edges with routines. We ate. We watched a show she'd picked with an earnestness that made me ache, and I learned to make peace with the way pain can be patient. Days folded into a pattern of public virtue and private omission. She continued to preach caution to her followers. Captions about self-worth and the refrain "don't let them play you," while slipping into text threads that belonged to someone else. I became an expert at noticing the small betrayals. A phone that buzzed and was carried to the bedroom. A sudden allergy to staying in. A laugh that sounded different when I was nearby. Friends asked if everything was okay, and I answered with the practiced calm of a man who wanted to believe his own best intentions. My silence felt like a currency I was spending in the hope of buying clarity later. When I finally showed her the messages, it was not with a shout, but with the even-handedness of someone who had rehearsed his heartache 1,000 times quietly. She read like someone who'd been caught with a truth she'd been trying to keep tidy. First confusion, then a quick pivot to defensiveness, then an apology that tinkled in the air like a coin tossed to distract you from what it couldn't replace. She called it a mistake. She called it loneliness. She said she loved me and used the kind of precise words that people use when they're trying to stitch a wound closed before the stitches settle. She said she'd stop. She promised she would learn to be the woman she told her followers to be. Promises are delicate things, and I had watched her hand out so many like confetti. The caption she'd written to strangers looked like a joke in the light of the messages I'd read. A public morality performed like an outfit she could change. I realized then how cruel that performance could be. To teach the world a lesson you don't plan to take yourself. If she told others not to be played while she orchestrated the game in another room, then what I had loved was a partial truth, an illusion dressed up in earnestness. I could have shouted, burned whatever was left of our history like paper thrown into a fireplace. I could have told her everything I thought of her and watched her cliffs of defense crumble. But my anger chose a different course, quieter, colder. the kind of slow revenge that reshapes the ground beneath someone's feet. I began with small refusals that layered into a new life. I stopped answering calls at midnight when her texts lit up. I refused to be the convenient safety net for the person who treated loyalty like an optional accessory. I reclaimed mornings for myself, taking long walks before anyone else was awake, and letting the city teach me how to be solitary and steady. I returned kindness with boundaries, and let the distance be the punishment that spoke best.